Welcome to the Light of Sirio podcast. My name is Dori Fari and I will speak with a realized spiritual master about his views on life and the topic of spirituality.
Hazur Maharaj Sanji, you're my Sadgurus, I bow down to you. Hazur Maharaj Sanji, you're my Sadgurus, I love you. Hazur Maharaj Sanji, you're my Sadgurus, I adore you.
So now we arrive to the 6th episode of Series 3 of our podcast. And before we begin this episode, I would like to tell you about something that, I suppose you listen to this podcast because you like to listen to a podcast. And also I suppose that you're interested in the topic of spirituality. Therefore, if you are interested in meditation practice and in the practical teachings, in the practical side of the teachings of Master Sirio, the way he puts this spiritual path, you can find a meditation podcast called The Daily Guidance Meditation Podcast, where there is published every day a new episode, and you can listen to meditation talks by Master Sirio, because in all these years we recorded several talks by him during spiritual retreats, and therefore we thought that we have a value, a capital in our hands that wouldn't be good to just let it lay there without offering it to the people to take the benefit from it. So if you're interested, just look for Daily Guidance Meditation Podcast and enjoy. I myself, I love to listen to it. I find it very relaxing and uplifting, and I think it's a very nice complementary to this other podcast. So this is one thing, and the other thing also is related to practice, so that if you feel attracted to the teachings of Master Sirio and to meditation and to try this spiritual practice with Master Sirio, I would like to announce to all listeners that we have the annual spring intense meditation spiritual retreat in the Sant Ajaib in Italy from the 25th of April to the 1st of May. So if you're interested in making this experience, then you can just email me through the usual siriopodcast@gmail.com and I can update you about the details. And now let's move on to episode 6 of series 3. And for this also I would like to make a brief introduction that in the previous episode we could listen to a conversation with Norman Sharp in which he told about his personal story, how he met Sant Ajaib Singh, and he described Sanji from his point of view and how it was for him. And of course, along with Norman came his son, Chris, and he also eventually got initiation from Sant Ajaib Singh Ji. And I got so many positive feedback on the interview with Norman that I thought it would be nice to take an interview also with Chris and listen to his story, because there is quite a generational gap in between them, in the sense that Norman was a spiritual seeker who found his master, Master Kirpal, and then he found the successor for him of Master Kirpal in the form of Sant Ajaib Singh. But Chris, who was just a small child at the time his father came on the path, then he of course has a different perspective on all this, and also the way he could see Sanji and the masters and the path, it's a different viewpoint, and I would like to offer you this wider perspective. So I decided to offer for this episode now to you a conversation with Chris. So hi Chris.
Hi Dory.
Welcome. It's a new experience to have a conversation like this, and we could come to know you already, those also who don't know you, from the episode with your dad, Norman Sharp, because Chris is the son of Norman, and so we could hear the description of your father when he was initiated in 1964 in the bedroom of Christopher. And
yes.
You were 5-6 years at the time, so that's how you were introduced into our podcast by your dad. And then also the reason why we have this conversation, that you went a long way from that point of the initiation of your father, and eventually you yourself were initiated by Sant Ajaib Singh ji.
Yes.
So tell us, how did you get from the point of your dad being initiated in 64 in your bedroom by Master Kirpal, Master Kirpal's representative, that you yourself came on the path and be initiated by Sanji?
It's a really good question, and I've always felt very different to, my fellow Satsangis, although we should all feel the same. But I've always been aware that they've always been seekers, and they've been seeking a path and seeking a master and investigating religion and spirituality. Like my dad, he was the seeker in our family. And as you said, he was initiated in my bedroom, and I was 5. And he used to meditate on my bed, and we had a picture of Kirpal above my bed. And it wasn't normal in the respect that I wasn't indoctrinated. So very often we hear people in spiritual paths or religions, and if the parents are of that religion, then they bring their children up like that. But I was a Christian, and my dad never indoctrinated me. But what happened was my dad was initiated, and then I started getting all the blessings of an initiate. So I would say to my dad, what is this? What's this? And he would explain to me, and I would go, And of course, my dad was vegetarian, and my mum and I weren't, And so mum always cooked 2 meals, and I knew that Kirpal was a perfect master. I became aware of that realization because we didn't have a normal life. We were just blessed with all these happenings and protection. So I just accepted that Kirpal was my master, even though I wasn't initiated. And Mum accepted him as her master, but as she said, it wasn't for her. And as I used to say to Dad, I know he's a perfect master, but it's not for me. I just wanted to be a normal person, you know, who fitted in with my friends, and but I had all the advantages of being an initiate, even though I wasn't. And I can remember one day I was in the garage at home, and Dad came in, and he said, "Our master's passed." And I said, "I know." You know? So I already knew that day that he'd passed, and I wasn't an initiate.
So it was in 74?
Yes. So
21st of August he passed away.
So that was an example of the connection that I felt.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember having a talk to my mum, and she said, "Oh, well, you know," he used to say, "Well, your dad is going somewhere different to us." You know, and I felt that was a bit of a problem for me, you know. I didn't want to be parted from him and my mum, you know. I was thinking, well, he's going to go to some other place. And so it was quite unusual, because my dad has always been very dedicated, and he meditated every day. He built, you know, a meditation hut, and it's evolved over several incarnations to a beautiful hut now. But he always had a meditation hut. He was meditating all the time. He never said, "You must do this." So I just saw him for what he was.
So did you ever try to meditate with him?
No. But I didn't need to. I was getting all the advantages without being on the path.
So you had the joyride on the path.
So I had the free.
He did the hard work for you.
I was just the free. I was the free passenger. And of course, that was Kapal. I felt Kapal was my master. So I was affected when he passed. And then I remember Dad coming to me and saying, "Oh, there's a new master come along."
And how did you feel about this news?
I said to him straight away, "Oh, there'll never be another master like a pal." You know, so that's that. I wasn't interested. And of course, I wasn't involved in the satsangs, so Dad used to go down to London. You know, it's a very, very different time. And I suppose, you know, I'm assuming that everyone knows, but it was a different time when my dad was an initiate. You know, he used to go down to London.
Yeah, from the area of Leeds.
You know, from, you know, yeah. So that, which was a long journey, and my mum allowed him to go, and, you know, we weren't especially rich or anything, so Mum allowed him to go down to London to meditate, you know, and cook for him, and allowed him to pursue this path. You know, it was never a problem, and it wasn't a problem with me, you know, and so we just coexisted. And then I came to realise that Sant was a perfect master.
And how did you come to this? How did you come to this realization?
It just happened over a period. I don't know. Dad went to meet him, and I just got that realization myself without being connected. Mm-hmm. I realized that he was a perfect master. And then we went to the point, I think it was about 1993, and I thought, Dad said, well, Master Sanji's coming to France, Silly-Tillard. Would you like to go? And I thought, well, look, you know, I want to witness what a perfect master looks like, you know, and what he is. You know, I've had all these benefits all my life. We've all had them in the family. So I really want to witness, I want to see a perfect master, at least, you know, in my life. So I said, yes, of course, I'll come. And we flew to France, to this beautiful farm, Silly-Tillard. And it wasn't something that I'd experienced before. Of course, my dad had been to India and met Kapal, and he'd been to Satsangs and all these, you know, meditations, and I'd never been, literally. So the first time I ever was involved in that was flying to France, to Silly-Tillard.
But how old were you, more or less?
I think it was 33, I believe. So we arrived at this beautiful farm, and actually we stayed in a hotel, I believe. And then we got to the farm. It was beautiful, and there was a huge white marquee, and what seemed like 1,000 people. It was really well organised. I met all these people, and we had chai, tea, and then I went into this huge white marquee, and Sanji was on a huge platform, and it was the greeting, and it was just unbelievable. His eyes danced across everyone.
But you only saw him from far, is it?
Quite far, but not too far, but immediately. His presence was overwhelming. It was, and I was having to ask Dad what's happening, you know, what's this? And he was saying, oh, that sounds like this. And the power of him was overwhelming, and his eyes were dancing. He was giving darshan to 1,000 people, so his eyes were flicking, and I felt, you know, from that instant of darshan, I felt this overwhelming, you know, power. So that was interesting, you know, and I wasn't there to get initiated. The requirement was that you became vegetarian and didn't drink alcohol for a month, just out of respect for a perfect master. And I said, yeah, of course, I will do that. But
just to participate in the program?
Just to participate
so you had to,
in the program.
Yes, so you had to prepare a month.
Yes, you couldn't just turn up. Mm-hmm. You had to be vegetarian for at least a month and alcohol free, which I was happy to do. And so as soon as I was in his presence, it was unbelievable, and he was beautiful. It was like a Hollywood guru. He was in diamond white, with a white turban and
white beard.
Yeah, white beard. And so I immediately started getting these overwhelmingly feelings, and so that was interesting, you know. And I talked to Satsangis, and they told me about themselves, and so I was just considering it, you know, about initiation, but not really seriously. And then the next morning was Satsang, and it was 6 a.m. and it was, as I've said, a massive white marquee tent with 1,000 people in. And again, it was so different. I don't know if people realise, but you weren't allowed into Satsang meditation unless you were an initiate. So I just stood outside the tent where there was a doorway, and I could see, I was as far away as you could be from Sanjay. He was on the podium and the place was full to the brim of people. And I was just outside, and I had a blanket over my head, and it was so early, the dew was falling like rain. Mm-hmm. And I was doing, I didn't, of course, again, I didn't know about the Simran. I didn't know the Simran. And my dad told me to do a Simran of the Master's names, Sawan, Kepal, Sanjay. So that is what I was doing. I was out in the dew, looking through this gateway. And
it's like a scene from a movie.
Yes.
That you're standing outside in the blanket.
Yes. And really not knowing anything about this situation. And so they went into meditation, and everybody's heads went down, and Master's head went down, and I was there doing the mantra of Saman Kapal Sanji. And then...
But were there other people waiting outside with you?
No,
were not initiated?
I was the only one.
Ah.
I was alone. And so maybe, I don't know, I was the only one. And then, so everybody was in meditation, and Master's head was bowed down. And suddenly, in the middle of meditation, his head popped up. And he looked to the right and beckoned someone with his hand to come to them. And then he pointed towards me. And someone came to me and pulled me into the tent.
Wow.
Right in front of Sanjay, and sat me there.
This sounds beautiful. What a loving attention. What a loving care he showed to you.
Oh, it was absolutely unreal and overwhelming, because no one knew it happened. They were all in meditation.
Yeah, they were all meditating.
But Sanjay came out of meditation and pulled me in front of him. So that was a wonderful thing, a wonderful happening. So, you know, again, when we had another break and more chai and talking to my dad's friends, because he had so many friends over the many years of his meditating in London and all over the world. He'd been to India, so he knew a lot of the people there. And I discussed it, you know, what's it like being initiated, and so.
But did you take a decision?
No, I didn't really. But what happened was, we got a personal. We queued to have a personal one-to-one meeting. So I queued, and it was one at a time. So we went from being 1,000 people to just one. And so I walked into this room, and I can only say it was like walking into heaven. So, and there was this beautiful guru.
But could you go to him on your own?
Yes.
Just one interview?
I went on my own.
Oh,
Walked in.
Special.
And the room was like heaven. It was changed. And I was lucky to speak to Master Sirio about this. And he had exactly the same experience. And he said that that was the only time that that ever happened at Silitanad, which was wonderful, because who else can validate your experiences other than a perfect master? So I walked into this room and it was like heaven. And I went up to him and he said, "Oh, who are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm the son of Norman Sharp." And he went, "Oh, he's a sweet soul." And it was just so beautiful. And I had a few questions, and I asked him a question about initiation. And of course, he didn't speak English. So I would give my question to Papu, who was his translator. And I asked him this question. And he laughed. He threw his head back and he had the sweetest laugh. He went, "Ha." It was just wonderful. So I made my to-be master laugh, which was a great gift. And he gave me some parshad, which I made sure that I didn't touch this God. I thought, oh, I can't possibly touch this God. But I did say to him, I said, "Thank you for allowing me to gaze on the physical presence of a perfect master." And of course he couldn't understand what I said because he didn't speak English, so he went to Papu, and Papu went to him and said, and he just turned to me and he just gave me this intense darshan, which was beyond anything I'd ever experienced. But it was never ending. He turned sort of, when he heard that I'd said, you know, "Thank you for allowing me to gaze on the physical presence of a perfect master," he turned at me intently, and this darshan was so overwhelming. But the only thing that I knew was to look into his eyes. So he just never stopped. So then I thought, well, this is going on a long time. I better start backing out. And so I started backing out of the room, and he never took his eyes off me. He turned his head and he was giving me this darshan, and I was walking out backwards. And the room seemed like to be an endless corridor. It was like
another dimension.
It was like 100 yards long, and I was just going out backwards, and he was never stopped the darshan. And it was just overwhelming. So after that meeting with this beautiful guru, I thought, well, I'm going to get initiated.
Ah, so you decided?
Well, how could I not? So then I went to the initiation, and it was a room, a little bit the size of this, you know. It was a very little 20-foot square farmhouse room, and in the right-hand corner, I was right at the front of the initiates, and in the right-hand corner was this stone corner staircase that came down, and I was there cross-legged, which was very uncomfortable for me because I never sat cross-legged, and I'd never been in meditation really, apart from on this first retreat. And so I was sat there to be initiated, and Sanji walked down these steps in the corner and looked over us, and it was just like a movie. He was so beautifully dressed in white, radiating white turban, white shirt, and he had a waistcoat on, and he looked over us, and it was it was just like a Hollywood movie. You know, it wasn't like any guru that I'd ever seen, or how I would imagine a guru, you know, apart from Kapal. So anyway, then we started going through the initiation, which was, they gave us the Simran, which, as I said, I'd never heard before because they kept it secret. And during the initiation, I forgot one of the words, you know, it was all new to me, and I was there. And there were a few people in the room, I believe. It's very difficult for me because after I started the initiation, that was it. I was, whoa. I was feeling, wow, overwhelmed, and then
spiritual roller coaster for you.
And then I was like, oh. So 4 people had to carry me out. You know, I was so.
But during the initiation or after?
During the initiation, they had to carry me out. 4 people. I don't know. I was just over. I feel normal, and it wasn't something that I could handle.
So it was so strong for you.
It was very, very strong. So they had to carry me out, and I had to go into, there was a tent, and I had to go into a tent and lie in the tent and just be alone. And I know it was different for me because I walked into a room, the person that I knew, and I was carried out of that room feeling completely different, changed. Things were missing, things had gone. Couldn't tell you what, but I sort of grieved them, really, because it was like a loss, and it was unexpected, and
so you were totally shaken.
Completely shaken. And it was funny because I'd spoken to one of my dad's friends who was a Satsangi, and he was quite an old gentleman, and he said, look, you know, you can just get initiated, and if you don't like it, you can walk away. You know, he says, I had a friend and he got initiated and he didn't like it, so he walked away.
So it was before?
Yeah, so he'd said to me, you can get initiated. You know, when I was asking him about should I get initiated or what's it like, he said, look, there's no problem, just get initiated. If you don't like it, you can walk away.
So I walked into the trap and then free yourself if you can.
So I was carried out of this room, and I felt changed. Mm-hmm. In fact, I was grieving for whatever I had lost. And then I was quite angry because I went to this guy in the tent and I said, you lied to me. I said, you told me that I could get initiated and walk away. I said, but I've gone into a room and I'm completely changed, you know. And I was really angry with him, you know. And it was 10 years before I managed to, you know, apologise. But at that time, it was so life-changing, and so it wasn't a normal...
Yeah, so you were like completely shaken,
completely
and shocked also.
Grieving for the losses of things that had been taken.
And could you get the chance to talk with Sanji about what happened to you?
So, well, of course, this wasn't a normal initiation, apparently.
Yeah, because I never heard anybody else to have
so then it was so different that they took me to the Russell Perkins, who was travelling with Sanji, and he was a very, very educated and experienced.
Yeah, he also was initiated by Kipal.
So they took me into a room with Russell Perkins, and he said, "Okay, tell me your experience." So I told him my experience, and he went, "Oh." He says, "Well, this has only ever happened once before in Delhi, 1963, with a 6-year-old child, you know." So I suppose I was very, very lucky.
It's interesting, actually. Sorry to interrupt you. That you say Russell said that he experienced this happening once in '63 with a 6-year-old boy, just when your dad got initiated in your bedroom when you were just that age.
Actually, yes. I hadn't really analysed that, but that was the only time, and he was like the writer of Kapal and the writer of Sanji and the expert. So he knew that this had never happened before, except in 1963 to a 6-year-old. So I guess that was special. But at the time, I was really grieving, you know, and as I said, I tracked this guy down and I said, "Look, you know, you said to me I could just walk away." I said, I can never walk away. I'm not the same. And I feel in a way bad about telling the story, because people will think, "Oh, you know, I'm not going to get initiated." It sounds bad, but it's never really happened. And I've come to realise that it was a special thing. And have I got any regrets? No. And so I had all these special times. A few things happened in the Silly Talad, and I knew that was my one opportunity to see Sanji, because I knew before I even went that this was the last time. I knew he was going to go. So I saw him.
Yeah, I think it was in '94.
He gave me all these miracles in this 3-day period.
It was only 3 days.
Something like that.
Super intense.
Yeah. And so I wasn't even going to get initiated, and I ended up laid in a tent in the black, and I sent someone out to get me Coke and a packet of crisps to, to rehabilitate, and I was shocked, shell-shocked. And really that was sort of the beginning of a second part, because I realised then, also one thing, I don't know if you knew, but my dad wrote to Kapal, and in a letter directly to Kapal, and he said, "I'd like can it be the same shepherd, you know, for my wife and son?" And I think that really I was initiated, you know, at that young age, because I was getting all the advantages of being a Satsangi.
So even without being aware of it, you were in the path.
Yeah, even though, my mum was obviously a beautiful person and very sweet and loving, and all her life she just helped other people without being a Satsangi. And then eventually she became initiated by Master Sirio. So we were a unique family. My dad was initiated by Kapal, I was initiated by Sanji, and my mum was initiated by Sirio. So that, I felt then that I realised I was already on the path even though I was living, and that was just, I can only say, to be honest, that everything that I've received has all been through Master's grace. You know, I'm not worthy of any of these happenings. Never have been. But there have been many, and, you know, I'm very thankful to them.
Well, they also say that in India there is this saying, when the chela, the soul, is ready, then the guru appears.
Well,
and sometimes they say also that we think to choose our master, think to choose our guru, but some people say that we are pulled in.
Of course, you think that you
because we think we are the doers.
You think that you wanted to get initiated, but actually he's the doer.
Yes.
You know, it was my time. It was my ticket. You know, my lucky ticket, because it's a very elite club, the Path, and it's by invitation only. You know, it's not something that you go, oh, I think I would like that. No. It's time for you to come.
As we had a conversation with Master Sirio in this podcast show on free will, and he also said like this, we believe, it does good to our mind to believe that we think, we decide, and then we do, but it's not like this. So
I've certainly come to that realization.
But what I wanted to ask from you, Chris, then after this experience at the initiation, which was so unique that even Russell only heard about once in '63 with a 6-year-old child, then did you talk with Sanji about it, or what did he say about this? Or
I didn't talk to. I didn't get that opportunity to see Sanji again. It was just on the program. I saw the rest of the program, and then I never saw Sanji again. And I knew that that was the case. That's why I'd gone to see him in the first place, because I thought this is my one opportunity just to see a God man. I didn't go to get initiated, and then look what happened. You know. So then, of course, it was really funny because but it was so overwhelming because, you know, many things happened which I'm not comfortable to tell because they're for me, you know. But I can say that when I've been initiated and I sat among the same people that I'd sat among before initiation, when they sang the songs, it just went through me. Oh, I was like shaking when it was going through me. And when we left, we got into a car and we stopped in a supermarket, a huge shopping mall. And we got out of the car. And as I walked in the shopping mall with my dad and a couple of people we were with, as every person walked past me, it was taking away from me. As everybody walked past me, it was taking away from me. As if they were muddying me, you know. And
so you were in a very delicate condition.
Yeah. And I had some really good experiences. I went on holiday after that with my friend, and I'm a musician, and he's a great musician, and we went together to Greece on holiday. And I didn't obviously tell him about the initiation because it's not acceptable, you know, at that time, or, you know, I've never been comfortable really to discuss it openly. But I told him that I'd stopped drinking, and he went, what? You know, so we used to go to these bars and there were free shots and drinks, and so he was doing all the drinking and I was just
drinking water.
Drinking, you know, Coke, you know, and but I had a very intense experience because as it worked out, we were going out and on the beach, and then he said, "Oh, look, let's have an afternoon siesta," you know. So we'd got this beautiful sort of little villa to ourselves. So he would sleep, and I meditated, and I had just the most extreme revelation.
Amazing. Really amazing.
When I was on holiday, meditating with my friend, and all this was really something that I knew nothing about, because most people are seekers, so they do due diligence, don't they? They start in religion, and then if they're interested in more, they go to spirituality and philosophy, like my dad, and then they stumble across the path, because not really they're stumbling, they're getting pulled. But I hadn't done any of that, so I didn't know what to expect. And so even though I never expected to be on the path, it's been the greatest thing that could have possibly happened. And then my mum was happy that I'd got initiated, and then but she said, it's not for me. And then that worried me. So for 23 years, every morning before I went to work, I would say a prayer to Sanji. Please, Master, initiate my mum. Every morning for 23 years. And then it came to this one day, and that was it. I was going to work, I locked the door, I did my prayer. But it was different. I just begged, I said, look, please, Sanjay, this is it, I want her to be initiated. And that was it. So I went to work, and then I think that night, Dad said, oh, there's another master coming to Britain. Would you like to come? And I went, no, I don't want to come. He says, it's local, and, the group have arranged it. It's called Sirio, and I said, no, why do I need to come? I've got a master. I've got Sanjay. I don't need anybody. I've got him, so I'm not coming. So my dad said,
well, it sounds like after Kirpal, when your dad said there is Sanjay, then said, no, there is no one like Kirpal. Then you tried the grace of Ajaib, and then for you there was no one else.
Yeah, but it was different. It wasn't different, but it felt the same. I said, no, I'm not interested. And then he asked again, he says, it's tomorrow, do you want to go? I said, look, okay, I'll drive you there, I'll come with you. Because there were other Satsangis there. And so I came. It was a place called The Cheese, and you were there, as you know.
Yes, I remember.
And so it was quite interesting, because we were all sat, and we were introduced to Sanjay, to Sirio, and I said, my name is Chris, and my master is Sanjay. And he just beamed at me.
I remember.
And because I felt my master is Sanjay.
You wanted to make the point.
I wanted to make the point. My master is Sanjay. And I said, my name's Chris, and my master is Sanjay. And we shook hands, and that was it. So then I sat down, and immediately Master Sirio proved to me he was a perfect master. He was a God man. He gave darshan, and no normal human being can do what darshan does. You can look into anyone's eyes and see love and feel affection, but not like a perfect master gives darshan, if you've been lucky enough to feel the intensity of that, which I had been. There was no, and of course I was overwhelmed again in a similar situation, as you know. I don't want to go into details.
Yeah,
but it was overwhelming.
Like also with Sanji, that it was so overwhelming.
Yeah, so again, it was overwhelming me. So I knew this is a perfect master, But, I've got my own. But I did get a one-to-one interview with Master Sirio. And of course, my number one question was, well, I have my mum and I want her to get initiated, but she doesn't want to. And he said, well, if she doesn't want it, he said, but anyway, I will come. And I thought in my head, oh, he'll come when she dies. And he said, no, I'm coming to the house tomorrow.
Like as if he heard your thoughts.
So that's what happened. So it wasn't part of the program, and it was a bit of an issue because things were in place, and we saying, "No, you're coming to see my mum." Oh, no, we've no time for that. But anyway, eventually, Master came to my mum and dad's house to see my mum, who wasn't at the program, and she'd never wanted to be initiated or on the path. And he turned up at the house, and he went over to her, sat in the chair, and he said, "Would you like to be initiated?" And she said, "Of course."
Of course, I was there. I remember. That was so sweet. I remember seeing it. So the movement she made with her hand. Of course. What a question.
So I turned to Master and I said, "Master, will you do it?" And he went, "It is done." So that was the perfect ending for me, because really this has never been about me. It was just about my dad and my mum. I was never a seeker. It's just a bonus, a gift. It's just a gift for me, but it's not about me. I don't want anything, but I get it. And it's the culmination really has been that I'm here now in this heaven on earth, in Ripola with Master Sirio, who proved to me he was a perfect master. And it's a great privilege to be here with you and in this prayer room and in his presence and in his retreat, and being able to receive his darshan. And it's not something that I could have ever foretold, that would happen to me. And still, I feel it's not in my control. It's not something that I ever considered. But do I have any regrets? No, it's wonderful. But it's interesting, and that wasn't the end of the story, That was just the beginning. Every day, the Master's with me. And actually I have 4 Masters: Sawan, Kapal, Sanjay, Sirio. So I'm very lucky.
So you're really looked after, Chris.
Absolutely. And but I still don't feel worthy of it. And again, there's so many wonderful Satsangis who made that effort and looked to find a guru and made efforts. But, I'm just a lucky passenger.
Well, every story is different. As there are not two people the same.
True, yeah. I have come to that realization, and it was funny because before I got initiated, I was speaking to my dad in his prayer room, and he's got thousands of books. And one day he mentioned the word Sach. And I thought, wow, I've never heard that word in my life. What is that? He says, well, that's the supreme place where the supreme power. I says, wow, that's, and being a musician, I said, wow, that's a great title for an album, On the Road to Sachkhand. So I wrote it on a little yellow post-it. And this was before I was initiated. And then I went home, and in the pantry at home, I had a little board that I pinned it to.
On the road to Sachkhand.
On the road to Sachkhand. And then, funnily enough, I never really used that board. The only thing that was on it was this little yellow post-it on the road, and it was in the pantry, and I never really used the pantry much. And then I was moving house, 20 years later. And as I was emptying it, I got to the pantry, and I went in, and I was taking down this board, and there was this yellow post-it on it, and it said, On the Road to Sachkhand. And then I realised
that
it was the master,
Yeah,
leaving me that little message, because people don't realise that God has got a sense of humour.
Yes.
And I realised there it was. It was official. Before I got initiated, I was on the road to Sachkhand.
So your supreme album is this, which you're realising through your life.
So, I hope it continues, that Master Sirio is around for many years, and carrying on the beautiful work of Sawan, Kapal, Sanji. And so it's really been a blessing.
So thank you very much, Chris, to share your beautiful personal spiritual story with us. It's very interesting. On the road to Sachkhand. Probably this should be the title of this episode. So,
yeah, well, thank you.
You never thought things go like a full circle. Things are circle like a mandala, like spiral. Everything in the universe, the solar system, the galaxies. Now there is this spiral, circular things.
Yeah.
So then it started on the road to Sachkhand back in the 90s, and now you never thought that today you are going to sit here with me and mention about this yellow post-it note on the road to Sachkhand.
Yeah, it's because it wasn't just a post-it note, it was that meaningful. And when I saw it 20 years later, I realised how meaningful it was. I just thought I'd written an album title.
Yeah, like a time capsule. Actually, no, it came back to me. Wow.
So the master works in mysterious ways, and that's just one of the many examples that I've been privileged enough to have in my life. And thank you for asking me. It's made me revisit the wonderful occasions of witnessing the wonderful privilege of being in front of God-men. They're not like anything else, and luckily I've had that realization. So it's been very special, and I can't understand it, how I've been so lucky.
Well, this kind of sharing is very precious, because we all have different viewpoints, and different perceptions, different understandings. But the way you describe yours, it really like, how to say, like the piece of a puzzle to get a full picture. But also now you got very precious additions about Sanji. Like I became aware of this when I was talking with your dad about Master Kirpal and then about Sanji, and the way he could describe be the personally, then it really, that's another time machine that brings you there, and you feel to be there, and you feel that atmosphere and happenings, and your story definitely is very unique and very special. So I am very thankful to you, Chris, to share it with all of us. I'm sure that everybody finds it very captivating and motivating also.
Well, thank you for asking.
And I want to ask you one thing, since it was mentioned also in this conversation that you're a musician, and well, those who listen to us and don't know you, they don't know that you wrote some very nice songs dedicated to the master, but you also wrote a mantra, just how to say, to give a... to add something about the picture of Chris Sharp, the musician Satsangi, who was not a seeker, but he's on the path. And you wrote a mantra which everybody likes a lot, and we just call it among ourselves in the Sangha the rock and roll mantra. So it's a unique style mantra. Would you perform it for us?
Of course.
Okay, so thank you, Chris. Let's listen to the rock and roll mantra, and next episode comes after 2 weeks. And if you like to listen to this podcast, please subscribe, leave a rating, and leave a comment if you like it. And if you have any questions or anything to tell me, then you're most welcome to send an inquiry to the siriopodcast@gmail.com. And now let's listen to Chris and the rock and roll mantra.
Satnam, Radhaswami, 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 Satnam, Satnam Nami, Satnam, Sira Iguru, Sira Iguru, Sira Iguru, Satnam, Satnam Nami, Satnam, Master gives me joy, Master gives me bliss, Master gives intoxication and ecstasy. Satnam, Radhaswami, 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 Satnam, Satnam Nami, Satnam, Radhaswami, 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 Satnam, Satnam Nami, Satnam, Sira Iguru, Sira Iguru, Sira Iguru, Satnam, Satnam Nami, Satnam, Radhaswami, 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 Satnam, Satnam Nami, Satnam, Sira Iguru, Sira Iguru, Sira Iguru, Satnam, Satnam Nami, Satnam, Radhaswami, 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 Satnam, Satnam Nami, Satnam, Sira Iguru, Sira Iguru, Sira Iguru, Satnam, Satnam Nami, Satnam, Master gives me joy, Master gives me bliss, Master gives intoxication and ecstasy. Satnam, Master gives me joy, Master gives me bliss, Master gives intoxication and ecstasy. Satnam, Radhaswami, 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 Satnam, Satnam Nami, Satnam, Sira Iguru, Sira Iguru, Sira Iguru, Satnam, Satnam Nami, Satnam, Radha Swami, Radha Swami, Radha Swami, Satnam, Satnam Nami. Satnam, Sira Iguru, Sira Iguru, Sira Iguru, Satnam, Satnam Nami. Satnam, Satnam Nami. Satnam, Satnam Nami.